Okay, when you first get your clay, it's going to be in a rock shape. So I like to tell students, put their thumbs together to make butterfly hands. You're going to wrap your hands around your clay, and you're going to push from your shoulders down onto the table. Then you're going to roll the clay back towards your stomach. Push down, roll back, push down, roll back. This is called wedging. What's happening right now is air bubbles are popping and it's making your clay more consistent. But wedging also dries out the clay. So depending on how soft your clay is, if you wedge it too long, you're going to make it leather hard. So I'm going to wedge it 5, 6, 7 times. Then at step 2, so it's still a rock right now. Step 2 is I want to flatten this with my 2 hands, one on top of the other. I'm going to squish it down flat, and I want it to be about as thick as the palm of my hand. So once I've flattened it, now I'm going to put 2 guide sticks next to the clay. You have to have the guide sticks always. This is going to determine how thin you roll your clay. Then you're going to get your rolling pin, and you always start from the middle and you roll away from you. And notice I'm kind of rolling at a diagonal, but the guide sticks are still under my rolling pin. Then I'm going to go in the middle and roll towards me. So I kind of roll out the corners. Then I'm going to flip this over. And I'm going to repeat. Roll from the middle away from me, roll from the middle towards me. Now, if I want my clay to get wider this way, I can't roll like this because now my rolling pin is not touching my guide sticks. If I roll like this, my clay is going to get too thin. So I pick up my clay and I turn it a quarter turn. Now my guide sticks are under me, and now when I roll, it stretches. So I'm going to repeat that until it reaches uniform thickness. That means the clay is perfectly smooth on the top and it's as thick as your guide stick. So when I think I'm finished, I'm going to roll as hard as I can. If the clay doesn't stretch, then I am finished. Then I want to check for air bubbles. If you see bumps on the surface of the clay, those are air bubbles, and usually just your finger wiping the surface of the clay can open up the air bubble. We'll see if I can find one. Well, that was one that had opened up after I already wiped it off. Okay, so that is the process of how you roll out a slab of clay. However, you are probably going to run into problems, so I'm going to show you how to fix the problems. Okay, the first mistake that I see students make is they skip flattening the clay. So if you try and roll a rock of clay, this is all that's going to happen. You're not actually going to roll that out. That's why you have to flatten it with 2 hands. If you try and roll from the front of the clay, it's either not going to move or it's going to cause the clay, if I can get it to happen, it's going to cause the clay to wrap around your rolling pin as you try to roll. So that's why we roll from the middle out. Now, if the clay is sticking to the rolling pin, see if I can get this to happen like this. When you get clay stuck on your rolling pin, that's going to create a problem because it's just going to make the clay keep sticking even more. So if this is nice and wet, I can use my dry hand and just wipe it off the rolling pin and put that on the side of my table. Then I'm just going to keep rolling. Now, if this is starting to dry out, like this piece doesn't wipe off very easy, I can use any wooden tools and I can start scraping that clay off. I never use water to clean off the rolling pin because water on clay makes slip. Slip is glue. So anytime you have clay on the rolling pin, clean it off. If you happen to spill water on your table, you cannot work where there's water because water is glue. So you have to get rags and dry that up or move to a drier spot on your table. So those are some common mistakes that students make. Clean your rolling pins off. If it's sticking, don't push as hard. Flip your clay over and then try to keep rolling with softer hand pressure.